seen the benefit of it so greatly that I don't know when I'm going to stop. I was just going to do it for 6 months. It was going to be this little weird protest because I'm mad about Roe v. Wade. But honestly, she says, it's like stopping smoking or even stopping doing drugs.
Wow.
Actress and singer Julia Fox, most known, at least in my orbit, because I think she dated Kanye for a little while. She was recently interviewed by Andy Cohen, and she came out about being celibate for the last couple of years. Her reasoning is quite backwards. She became celibate after the overturning of Roe v. Wade, even though she most likely lives in Los Angeles or Hollywood or New York, somewhere where she can still get abortions if she wants to. But out of solidarity with women around the world, she decided to go celibate. And since going celibate, her eyes have been opened to the positivity of a celibate lifestyle. And maybe Julia Fox just accidentally became a conservative and isn't even aware of it yet. So let's check out her interview with Andy Cohen.
Julia, Rachel A texted, what's your reasoning behind being celibate? And in what ways do you believe it has improved your life?
Well, I just think nothing good comes from having sex, including children. No, I'm just kidding. But, I think with the overturning of Roe v. Wade and, our rights being stripped away from us, this is a way that I can take back the control. And it just sucks that it has to be in that way. But I just don't feel comfortable until things change.
Wow. Did you have an end date to this?
I honestly, it was like 6 months and it was a year. And I'm like, oh my God, it's almost 2.5 years and it's still going. And I don't know.
Do you
it's
miss
like
it?
a miracle.
Do you miss it?
In the beginning, yes. But I think it's just like getting over anything, smoking, drugs, whatever it may be. Eventually you just forget. And then all that energy that you were putting toward sex, you can put it toward
Can I ask you a
things.
personal question?
All right. So that's the broad gist of what she says. Now, if you're an audio listener only, what you doing? Come over to youtube.com/Clayton Tyner, Tyner, because you're missing that she's dressed in saran wrap.
Wow.
That's her whole dress. Just saran wrap.
Wow.
So I don't understand fashion, but this to me is horrible. Not the point of the video. This is her point. Our rights got taken away because Roe v. Wade was overturned. And so now I've gone celibate. And you know what? It's really not that bad. What I want to do is I kind of want to break this down piece by piece to really understand, because I think something is happening at a more fundamental level than most people are aware of when they're watching this. And it's deeply spiritual in nature. And so I want to try to show you that.
Julia, Rachel A texted, what's your reasoning behind being celibate? And in what ways do you believe it has improved your life?
Well, I just think nothing good comes from having sex, including children. No, I'm just kidding. But, I think with the overturning of Roe v. Wade and, our rights being stripped away from us.
All right, so let's stop there. The overturning of Roe v. Wade and our rights being stripped away from us. Number one, is that what happened when Roe v. Wade was overturned? Roe v. Wade was an abortion law at the federal level, which meant it applied to all 50 states. When Roe v. Wade was overturned, no one's rights were immediately stripped away. What happens when the Supreme Court decides that a law should not be decided at the federal level, it now goes down to the state level. And if you remember back in primary school, the way the country was set up was for as much localized government as possible. So more decisions made at the local level, less decisions made at the state level, even less decisions made at the federal level. The federal level is supposed to be there to ensure our inherent rights, which is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and rights that align broadly with the Constitution. And since abortion is not enumerated in the Constitution, it goes down to the state level. And like I said earlier, the state that she lives in, for sure, she can get all of the abortions she wants as much as she wants. And the reason for this federalism, this idea that Texas, where I live, can take a very different approach to this specific issue than California or New York or Massachusetts, it allows for local populations to have their opinions heard at a level where if everything is at the federal level, it just doesn't happen. And so no one's rights were taken away. The rights were brought back down to the states.
This is a way that I can take back the control. And it just sucks that it has to be in that way. But I just don't feel comfortable until things change.
Wow.
So she says she has gone celibate to take back control. Now, The pro-life position, in part, is predicated on the idea of rights and responsibilities. So if you are a consenting adult in America, you do have the right to intercourse with basically whoever you want to that is also an adult and consenting. So that is a right that you have. However, when you engage in sexual intercourse, there is a responsibility inherent in that act because it is the procreative act. And I know that we have all kinds of technology and all kinds of mechanisms and all kinds of methods to keep that act from resulting in procreation. However, when sexual intercourse does not end in procreation, that's a bug, not a feature. It is made for that reason. And anytime two consenting adults pick up their right that they have as a citizen to engage with another consenting adult in intercourse, it potentially will end up in a pregnancy. And when that happens, you now have a responsibility. And part of what the pro-choice position does is it says that the person who has to bear the weight of responsibility for that procreative act is the child who we're going to terminate. So the child is going to bear the consequence instead of the consenting adults bearing the consequence. So you have rights, and rights come with responsibilities. So if you do not want to have any chance of having a pregnancy that you didn't intend, there are ways to take back your control, and under not just a pro-life umbrella, but now you put it under a biblical umbrella. The prescription is celibacy. So if you are celibate, here's a promise. You can't get pregnant. It is the ultimate form of birth control. So she says, I hate that I had to do it this way. You know, this is crazy that I can't just go out and have promiscuous sex all the time. But, you know, I'm just celibate and I've taken back my power. And she's right, dude. She has taken back her power, and she is living under a traditional understanding of how the rights and responsibilities along sex actually operate. And if you want to have free sex where you don't worry about the consequence, you come under a covenant called marriage, which is for the procreation and propagation of families and the most basic institution, which is the family unit. Let's let her keep going.
Do you have an end date to this?
I honestly, it was like 6 months and it was a year. And then I'm like, oh my God, it's almost 2.5 years and it's still going. And I don't know.
Do you
It's going
miss
to take
it?
a miracle.
Do you miss it?
In the beginning, yes. But I think it's just like getting over anything, smoking, drugs, whatever it may be. Eventually you just forget. And then all that energy that you were putting toward sex, you can put it toward.
Can I ask you a personal?
So she says, this is the most interesting part to me. He asks, do you miss it? And she says, no, I did it first, you know, and that's completely understandable. It's a part of your lifestyle. We live in a sex positive hookup culture. So people expend an enormous amount of energy on hookups, and people have enormously high body counts and can't figure out why the more people that they have sex with, the like lonelier and emptier they feel. And it is because they are going directly against God's design for how sex and relationship is supposed to work. And she says, yeah, I kind of missed it at first. And I thought I was only going to do it for 6 months. And now I'm 2.5 years in. I have seen the benefit of it so greatly that I don't know when I'm going to stop. I was just going to do it for 6 months. It was going to be this little weird protest because I'm mad about Roe v. Wade. But honestly, she says, it's like stopping smoking or even stopping doing drugs.
Wow.
Where it's hard at first, but then you start seeing the benefits. And then all of this energy, and it's not just energy in time where you're like scrolling and chatting and swiping and, you know, going out and having conversations and picking people up and going back and, you know, actually having sex and then figuring out how to like, you know, get out of there in the morning and just all the energy and the angst and they're mad and juggling different people. It's also emotional energy. It's also mental energy. And whether Julia Fox knows it or not, it is also spiritual energy. And part of what's happening, and I don't know that she'll ever connect these dots. Maybe someone who is, a spirit-filled believer will come into her life and help connect these dots. Part of what I believe is happening is that the law of God that is written in our hearts, the general revelation of God, is becoming known to her. Psalm 19:1 says, The heavens declare the glory of God, and the expanse proclaims the works of his hand. And Paul helps explain this to the Romans in Romans chapter 1. He says, God's wrath is revealed from heaven against all godlessness and unrighteousness of people who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. And so the fact that you've become celibate and feel like you have gotten sober from drugs is showing that God's natural wrath, the natural consequence of living in contrast to God's will and God's law, it's revealed naturally to you. You just know it. It's why you are lonelier and emptier and less fulfilled when you're just having casual sex with a bunch of people, and why you feel more focused and more energized when you're living according to Scripture. Paul goes on and says, since what can be known about God is evident among them because God has shown it to them. Check this out. God's invisible attributes, that is his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen since the creation of the world, being understood through what he has made. And as a result, people are without excuse. In other words, you experience God whether or not you know you're experiencing God. Julia Fox is experiencing God because she's following him without following him. She is coming under his law and his rule for sex and relationship, even though she may not believe in him and she may not be doing it for that reason. And she's experiencing specifically what Scripture teaches about the sanctity of our sexual life and what happens when we stop engaging in sexual immorality. Here's what 1 Corinthians says: flee from sexual immorality. Every other sin a person commits is outside the body, but the person who is sexually immoral sins against their own body. You know, when you do drugs, hard drugs, you are sinning against your own body. You are hurting your own body. And when you are sexually immoral, you are sinning against yourself. It is not that God is just trying to get in your way and block all of your fun and step on your game. God cares about you, and he knows that sexual immorality is you sinning against you. It's you hurting yourself. And Julia Fox is feeling the freedom of stepping out of that sin. And my prayer is that the dots would connect, and maybe that this could be something that would actually lead her to an understanding of who God is and how God feels about her. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you are subscribed so you can stay up to date with all new content. And if you want early access, exclusive content, and monthly live Q&As, make sure to check out patreon.com/ClaytonTyner.